When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the vehicle owner's manual for important feature limitations and information.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
What the f*** do you mean what am I talking about? You're talking you! Minor league mother what you are. I'll tell you guys something right f***ing now. It's not easy to be a f***ing champion, all right? It's the hardest f***ing thing there is to do. Are you guys that f***ing good? You're not. I'll tell you that right the f*** now. Wise up. Buddy, go ahead and say what the f*** you want to say.
I'm going to say what I want to say, and that gentleman right there is going to say what he wants to say. Welcome to the maiden voyage of 86, the Wally Backman Show. In just a moment, the star of the show, Mr. Wally Backman. My name is Bruce Jacobs. You can find me anywhere. I've been everywhere all over this country, virtually in every format, and more of that as we go along. But I have a question for you, Wally, before we get into it and give the folks a little taste of what's going to be coming up on the shows, today's show and into the future. Here's what I want to know, Wally. It's been burning. I've been dying to ask you this question. The first time they put this together, I'm sure you didn't remember my name, but the first time you saw my face, did you turn around to any of the bosses and say, this is the loser you got for me for this show? This guy again? I thought I got rid of this guy 30 years ago. Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest second baseman in the history of the New York Mets. It's an honor and a pleasure to be working with Mr. Wally Backman. How are you, Wally?
I'm doing great, but absolutely, I don't remember you coming in the clubhouse. I'm sorry to say that, but I don't remember it. But I think we're going to have a lot of fun here.
You know, when Johnny, who put this thing together, told me, he goes, when I spoke to Wally and I told him I was going to put him on the show with you, he said, oh, yeah, I remember that guy. I said, wait till he sees my face. Now, all right, I got 1 or 2 more grays since then. The truth is, as a 19, 20, 21-year-old scared intern, shaking, I put my mic in front of a bunch of you guys, and I don't remember ever you tearing me to shreds, by the way.
No, I've always tried to be good with the media, Bruce. So it's you got to have a good rapport with the media, I think, to last a long time and to enjoy the game as well. You can't run away from the media. You have to talk to the media on a daily basis.
Did you never get into I don't remember you ever getting into an explosion with them.
You know what? I want to have Jim Leland as one of our guests because he has the best story of me ever blowing up on a media guy. So I want to save that for down the road, but he can tell a story that will knock people's whatever in the dirt.
That's awesome. Can't wait to do it. And ladies and gentlemen, just to give you an idea of going into the future, and then I'll narrow it down for you what you will hear today. We've already got some guests lined up in the next couple of weeks for older Met fans, for younger Met fans. Okay, we'll be able to, you'll be involved and ingrained in all the shows, and you'll recognize all the names and all big names. And it's going to be great. We're going to be here for you every Thursday, broadcasting 86th, the Wally Backman Show. And there'll be plenty of social media interaction. We'll be putting that together for you. So in the weeks ahead, I will tell you this. And speaking to Wally as we put this show together and just picking his brain, getting to know him a little bit, him getting to know me. The one thing, well, you're going to get a lot of things from this program you're not going to get anywhere else. In fact, today, a little bit later on, for the Met fans out there that are upset that the Mets didn't swing a big deal for a starting pitcher, Wally's been working his contacts and also the guys he's worked with. We're going to give you an idea of what the Mets pitching prospects in the high minor leagues. So the guys that are ready to ascend to the big league club, we're going to give you in-depth analysis, some names, and Wally will go in. So look, I understand as a lifelong Met fan, I think I said Metsy before I said mommy. I can tell you that there are a lot of Met fans out there upset that we didn't pick up a starting pitcher at the trade deadline. Any thought about that real quickly, Wally?
No, not really. I think, to talk about, as we get into it, talk about some of the pitching prospects. I have 5 particular names on my list when we get into it that I think could be good additions for the Mets in the near future. And with the Mets not really making that big splash, they did go out and get 3 guys. We've seen the one kid from Miami pitch the other day. I can't pronounce his name very well, but he had a pretty easy inning. He was 98 miles an hour, so he should be able to help in the bullpen. The key for the Mets to be successful, they've been great since they've added a few guys, Iglesias, even Vientos. Vientos been a huge impact. This kid has worked so hard going back and forth, not making the team out of spring training and getting an opportunity, going down to the minor leagues and grinding it out and getting back to the big leagues. This kid deserves a lot of credit, and I was going to talk about this later in the show, but there's some names there that have really came on and turned the organization around at the major league level. And I know that there's only probably I don't think it's more than 12 guys that actually started the team on the roster. So, Stearns has done a great job, if you ask me. I mean, you talk about MVPs when you have only 12 guys on a opening day roster, you struggle the way that they've struggled and the way that they've played the last 22 games. A lot of credit goes a lot of different ways.
Wally, the guy you were thinking about, the guy they picked up from Florida, Miami, Huascar Brazoban. And not a young
Brazoban,
guy, by the way.
I can remember.
Brazoban made his debut when he was 30. He made his major league debut, I think, at 32 years old. So not a spring chicken. Okay, folks, let me give you an idea of what you're going to hear on the programs today. We're going to go inside the Mets minor league system. We're going to bring you some of the best pitching prospects the Mets have, so possibly we could see them before the season is up. Wally's got full scouting reports on a handful of guys. We're going to do something a little different today. This is not going to be a Q&A program, just so you know. But today, just to give folks out there that have lost contact with you, I'm going to ask Wally a series of questions to start out the show. Just some different things so folks can catch up with where Wally's been, what he's doing these days. I'm going to ask you the first question, Wally, which was, how does it feel to be a full member of the media now?
Well, it's different. This is my first time, so I think I'm going to enjoy it because the questions that you can ask, you can get some controversy, you can get a lot of things from it, but there's always been questions that even when I was playing and even when I was managing and watching a big league game or whatever, questions that I would have asked that a lot of people that I see today in the media are afraid to ask those questions because they don't want to ruffle the feathers. So, I go back to the days of, Jack Lang, guys like that when he was one of the beat writers, and he was rough. He said it how he thought it was. And you just don't see the media do that anymore. It's more on a friendly basis. I think you still have to respect. Well, you definitely, as a player, as a coach, as a manager, you have to respect the media. There's no question about that. I think that I've always done that. That's why I have the rapport with a lot of the guys, the Harper, Clappage, a lot of guys that I had to deal with back then that were tough on players at times. But you got to be able to deal with the media. There's no doubt.
Yeah, you played in a few cities, Wally. Would you confirm that the New York media, you also played in Philadelphia, which is known to have a vicious media. You played in Seattle, you played in Pittsburgh. But to me, New York and Philadelphia are the two cities. Which one had a tougher media to deal with?
No question, it was New York. Without
No
it, it's
question.
not even close.
Really?
Yeah, it's not even close.
Now, is it because those Philly teams weren't as good? I mean, obviously there was a lot of pressure on the Mets as they were building and getting better each year, 84, 85, and folks will have plenty of coverage. So for those who also love the past, trust me, we've got guests lined up and plenty of stuff on that. As you can see, I span it, okay? I go all the way from the franchise to there's our two Hall of Famers. I've got Pedro down here. So I started watching the Mets really, Wally. I started really getting at it. My first game live was against the Pittsburgh Pirates with Willie Stargell and Roberto Clemente, et cetera, et cetera. That was the first game. My first real was the 73 World Series against the Oakland A's when that son of a bitch, Reggie Jackson, kicked our ass.
Great player. That's why he's where he is today in the Hall of Fame.
Hit 3 home runs. I think it was in game 5 or game 6. The Mets led that World Series 3-2. We needed one more win. And by the way, that team barely snuck into the playoffs. So for Met fans out there, it doesn't matter how you get in. It doesn't matter how much you get in by. The Mets rolled the big red machine and then took the powerful Oakland A's to 7 games. And Reggie Jackson just broke our hearts.
Well,
It was devastating as a 9-year-old, Wally. Devastating.
Remember 86, we lost the first 2 games to Boston at home. And we were down 3-2 after we went to Boston, and we had to win 2 in a row, and we did it. So it can happen. It happens with good teams.
Yeah, and
we
by
were
the
a
way,
great team.
you were a great team, and even more than Boston, you were down, correct me, you were down 2 or 3-0 in the 9th inning, game 6 against the Houston Astros with Mike Scott scheduled to pitch. He won the Cy Young that year. He pitched a no-hitter for the Astros to clinch the division that year against the San Francisco Giants, and it's alleged that he also was a major scuffer of the baseball. I remember I've seen video where I'm watching Keith Hernandez, and he's in the dugout. I guess somebody hit a foul ball in there, and he's looking at it, and he's going like this. Yes, the ball is scratched. Was it really that obvious?
It was pretty obvious, but one thing about Scotty, I played with Scotty in the minor leagues. We did instructionally together because he was originally a Met, and he was just an average pitcher, and he came up with something new. And you know what? Yeah, there was some marks on the ball. There's a lot of people, you take advantage of everything you can do to be a better player. And hopefully you don't get caught, and Scotty did some things. He didn't get caught. Maybe the players caught some things, but the one thing about that series in 86 was there was a lot of players in our dugout that was intimidated, and I'm not going to say any names, and they know exactly who they are, that was intimidated if we had to face Mike Scott in Game 7. And so that comeback win in Game 6 there, not to have to face Scott, was huge for us because I'm talking really good players that we had. They didn't want to face Scott. They were so worried about the scuffing of a baseball, what he could make that baseball do. There was talk about Roger Craig was the guy that taught him how to do this. So another great name and a great manager and player, So it was what it was. You had to put all that aside, put your nose back to the grindstone and go out there. Played for a great guy in Davy Johnson that year and other years. And just don't worry about it. Just go out there and beat the guy.
Was the 86 NLCS the best series you ever played in?
Absolutely. It was better than the World Series.
I agree.
I think that when we played the Astros, they were tough. both teams had great pitching. And I will tell you this, from day one to the last day I'm alive, if you don't have good starting pitching, you cannot win. You have to have quality pitching, and the manager has to be able to run his bullpen. So the difference in today's game is you've got a seventh, eighth, and ninth inning guy, opposed to when I played, you got Doc Gooden, you got David Cohn, you got Sid Fernandez, you got all these guys starting that could go a minimum of 7 or 8 innings. So all you needed is a closer. But now you have your setup guy, your closer, but you really got to have two guys, left-handed and right-handed, to pitch the seventh inning for you to get you to those guys. So that part of the game has changed a little bit. And the other part is, of course, you can't have a specialist anymore, a left-on-left guy. So the left-handers have to get righties out as well. So, a lot of specialty left-handers have lost their job over the course since that started a few years back. So, the game has changed, but between the lines, players still play the game, and I hope that they play for the same reason that I played. I played to win every single day, knowing that in a 162 game schedule, you're not going to win every game, but you have to have that mindset and that preparation to be able to win those games like that.
Okay, folks, again, today's going to be a little different. I'm going to do a series of questions with Wally, just some Q&A. This is not set up as a Q&A program, but just so folks can catch up. Wally, besides media, what are you doing today?
Well, I took this year off. I've managed for a lot of years. It's the first summer that I've had at home here in Oregon. My brother and I do a lot of fishing. In fact, after today, I'm going to go back to the coast and do some more fishing for halibut, salmon, and some tuna. So I enjoy the outdoors. I'm an avid fisherman. I'm an avid fly fisherman. I tie my own flies. I do things that people never thought I probably would ever do, but that has been my life. And I really enjoy it. I was actually able this summer, being the first year home, to help my son, Wally Jr., coach his son in his first year of Little League Baseball, which is way different than where I've coached before. But I enjoyed it. So I enjoyed being able to spend a little more time with my grandkids this year. And, I look forward to doing what you and I are doing. I'm not saying I'm not going back into baseball to manage, because I just thought this was a year I needed to take off and just kind of relax my mind a little bit. I love to manage. I love to run a bullpen. I love the game of baseball, and being out this summer of baseball, I've really learned how much I really do miss some of that stuff.
All right. Well, I want to just lay the seeds for this, Wally. You don't need to answer this right now, okay? I want you to think about this. Put this in the back of your brain. Wally, if you ever decide to go back and manage, I think I'd make a hell of a bench coach. I just want to let you know. So just keep me in mind. Keep me.
I got
keep
you
me in mind
on the list.
I will tell you.
I got you 50th on the list, Bruce.
Okay, good. Where am I on the list?
50th.
Where am I on the list?
You're on the list. You're on the list.
I made the list. I'm telling you, I could be all right. I'll go shag the flies and pick up the baseballs in the outfield. I'll cut the grass, Wally. I want to come with you. Wally, how old were you when you realized, listen, a lot of us loved to play baseball when we were kids. And most of us just, we just played baseball with, maybe a hope or a dream, but no talent. How old were you when you realized, you know what? This could be more of a dream than just a dream. I want to turn this into my livelihood.
I think that I was like 15 years old, and I was playing for a semi-pro team. They didn't let me play at the start. I played for an American Legion team at the start because they thought I was too young. And we played in a tournament in Canada, in Kamloops, Canada, BC. And I had a scout from the Yankees come up to me, and he says, we watched you play in this tournament, and we were really thinking of signing you. And I says, well, my dad is over there. And by the way, I'm only 15 years old. And the guy was like, what? And so from that day on, my focus was, I must be pretty good because these people are talking to me when I was 15 years old. So at that time, I had friends, family, people ask me what I wanted to do when I grew up, got out of school, whatever. And I says, I'm going to play in the major leagues. I'll show you that I was going to play in the major league. So from that point, from when I was 15, I was dedicated, believing in myself and thinking that I am going to play in the major leagues. And I can tell you that I had school teachers, a principal that was a lady I went to Aloha High School that thought that what this guy's dreaming. And, the best part was I proved him wrong. And, one of my most biggest memories was bringing my high school coach to the World Series. Him and his wife came to the
Wow.
World Series. They stayed with me at my house in New York, and he's still alive. Bill Love was his name, and I enjoyed every minute with this guy.
Tell me this, that you think about it now, had you not been a Major League Baseball player or in Major League Baseball, what would you have done for a living?
I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea what I would have done.
Did you have any other interests?
There really wasn't.
So it was
It was
baseball and only going to be baseball
my whole
for you.
life has been sport. Bruce, since I was 17 years old, when I was the first round pick for the New York Mets, I can tell you this: I have never had a job outside of baseball since I was 17, and unfortunately I'm 64 right now.
That's a blessed life, Wally. That's a blessed
Baseball's a
life,
great
man.
world.
47 years in the greatest game known to mankind.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's rare. I mean, I have to tell you, and I've told you this, I knew at 10 years old because I couldn't play. I sucked. Okay. If you threw it as hard as you could, sooner or later I'd tee it up. But if you throw it any softer than that, you're just going to corkscrew me in the ground, man. In fact, over here, and I live in Arizona, Wally comes to you from the great state of Oregon. I had an opportunity, Wally, a couple of years ago. You may not remember this name, but when Billy Martin managed the Oakland A's, he had a pretty good
I
staff.
loved Billy Martin.
You do? You love
Yes.
Billy Martin. Yeah. What manager doesn't love Billy Martin? He had a staff. Many accused him, Wally, of running this staff into the ground. Matt Keogh, Norris, and a guy lived in Arizona, was listening to my radio program, Bob Lacey, who was a starting pitcher on that Oakland A's staff. He invited me to come down to Scottsdale Stadium because, I was bragging one day how, I can catch up to, well, not anybody's fastball, but, a good fastball. He said, come on down. I went down there, and Wally, I think I took 15 swings, and I think maybe on the 14th swing as a left-handed hitter, I popped one into the third base dugout, and that was it. And I realized I made the right choice. Put the microphone and put down the bat.
Hey, hitting a round ball with a round bat, throw 95, 100 miles an hour is not very easy to square it up.
Yeah. Can you try to, and I didn't ask you about this, can you try to give us, what did it feel like when you got that phone call that you were a first-round draft pick of the New York Mets?
I was sitting in typing class in high school that I was flunking, and the lady that was my typing teacher ended up giving me an A when they set it over the PA system that I was a first-round pick for the New York Mets. I was excited. The scout that signed me, Marv Scott, was at my house by the time I got home from school, and I signed immediately.
Wow.
It was my dream. So, I was excited.
Can you tell us what your signing bonus was? I'm just curious. Do you remember?
I know exactly what it was. It was $30,000 as a first-round pick. How about these
$30,000?
$30,000. A first-round pick today, God bless them. They never have to work another day in their life. They're getting $7, $8,
Right.
$9 million.
And whether they're good or bad, it
God
doesn't
bless them.
matter.
It doesn't matter to me because baseball has come such a long way. I'm trying to think. of the guy's name who really turned it around for the Players Association was Marvin Miller. And he really turned it around and got us into that free agency and all that type of stuff. But he made it a game for the players. The owners make lots of money, okay? But they didn't want to spend that money. And so Marvin Miller did a great job, I think, for the Players Association. I believe Marvin was the one that started it. There was a big part of getting the players what they get today, but it's well deserved for the players. People will argue the fact that, oh, these players make too much money, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? The true lifespan of a major league player is not very long. It's not that you're going to play into your late 40s or early 40s. Not some do, but not many. But if you're 40 years old and you've played until you're 40 years old, what are you going to do with the extra or the next 20 years of your life? Because you need to do something. But they've made it for a player now that they can retire and they can use their knowledge for baseball to talk to people about baseball. A lot of people back in, and I can go back into the 60s because I want to have Ron Zabota as one of our guests as well. And I know Ronnie will do it. So, you know, you go back to those guys where they didn't make any money. They had to get a real life after baseball. You know, I was kind of in the middle where the era was starting to change. And I think what baseball's done, I'll say what the Players Association has done from baseball since I'm going to say the 80s has been huge for the players.
How old were you when did you realize you wanted to manage? Did you know this while you were playing that you wanted to manage? Or
I
was
did,
that
you know,
something
and
that
I'll tell you just shortly that when I got traded from the Mets, went to Minnesota. Minnesota was a nightmare for me. But then I signed as a free agent with Pittsburgh, and I played for Jim Leland. And we had King was a third baseman, a first-round pick that the Pirates had got. And Jimmy had called me and said, Wally, I need you to play third base. I said, Jimmy, I never played third base in my life. I might have played one or two times for the Mets at third base. I hated it. And so I ended up signing there, and I said, okay, Jimmy, I'll do that. But Jimmy would tell me on a certain day I'd played 3 or 4 days in a row because I was facing all the right-handed pitching. I was a switch hitter that couldn't hit right-handed for shit. But left-handed I could hit. And he'd say, hey, Wally, we got to play Kinger today. And I'd say, okay, no problem. And those days that I didn't play, there was days where Jimmy Leland would call me down the bench. He'd say, Wally, hey, I want you to sit here and sit with me today, and I'm going to ask you some questions. And he'd ask me a question, Wally, what are you going to do in this situation? I says, well, I'm going to do this. He says, no, because they have a counter where they can bring a better player in to face the player that you want to play right now or pitch or whatever it might be. And, you know, I started thinking then, and I'll try to keep it short, but I could talk about Jimmy Leland forever. But Jimmy would tell me why and why not. And, you know, I was only able to play for Jimmy that 1 year. And then I went to Philadelphia, and Jimmy, I wish I never would have left Pittsburgh. I wish I would have finished my career with Jim Leland, because I learned more from Jim Leland in 1 year. And I'm going out there from probably anybody. And let me tell you, I loved playing for Davey Johnson. Davey gave me my first opportunity, but I learned more from Jimmy Leland in 1 year than I could tell you every manager I played for. And I could name everyone I played for, and a few of them are Hall of Famers. So, you know, it was good times. I mean, I played for Joe Torre when I first came up. I played for Lou Piniella in Seattle, Davey in New York. I played Jim Leland, Fergosi, Nick Leyva. I could
Boy, you're talking about some great characters here.
Oh, they're great people. There's stories, so many stories we could talk about. I don't know if I'd want the public to know all the stories.
Don't worry,
but
public.
We had some good times.
Don't worry, public. That's why I'm here. I'm going to get it
Okay.
all out of them. Don't you worry about that. You must have felt really good when Jimmy Leland went into the Hall of Fame then. I had no idea you were such a big Jimmy Lee when he went into the Hall of Fame. What a humble guy, man.
This guy almost quit baseball. You're talking about a guy
really?
that he wanted to manage in the big leagues, just never got the opportunity. And it was kind of his last straw. And we'll definitely have Jimmy as a guest so he can tell you the whole story. But this guy was the best players manager. Davey was right there too. But this guy in 1 year, the way he communicated with players, when I decided to manage and go on into the minor leagues, I realized that those players, you got to understand one thing. They're people. They're just not a number. Like when you go into the draft today, I'm not going to say Bruce Jacobs. We're going to say number 444567, Bruce Jacobs will take in the second round. You got a number on these people. The name is second to the number. And it was never that way. I did the draft 1 year. The first year, I believe, I was with the Mets. I managed in Brooklyn in 2010, coming back as not a player, but as a manager. And I went to the draft, and I was shocked when I heard how they called out a guy's number. It's almost, and I believe in analytics, but it's almost like some of the analytics. You cannot measure this, buddy. You cannot measure the heart in a player. And they try to put a number on everything. But when you win a world championship, the underachievers throughout the season might be the ones that step up to the plate in the end.
Interesting. And don't worry, Mr. and Mrs. Met fan out there. I will be getting all of the controversy and the salaciousness, and you'll all hear that in the next coming weeks. Like here, I'm going to throw Wally a softball here. There would be a follow-up question I'll tell you about in just a second, but I'm not going to ask that today. Wally, who is your favorite teammate on the New York Mets all time?
That's a tough question, because I tried to take Lenny Dykstra under my arm. I'll tell you who took me under their arm. That really tried to teach me the ropes was Lee Mazzelli and Rusty Staub. And God bless Rusty, he's gone now, but great guy. He taught me tricks about hitting, watching pitchers, and told me what to watch for on a pitcher, but he told me I could never tell another teammate what he told me. And so I never did. Yeah, no, he was there to help me. I was 20 years old when I went to the big leagues. And my first game was in Dodger Stadium. And here's even a better one. The only time I'd ever been in a major league stadium was in 1977 when I went and worked out for the Seattle Mariners. I had never seen a game in the big leagues, never watched a game in the stands or anything like that. My first game in the big leagues was in front of 55,000 fans and in Dodger Stadium, and I can name the whole team they had, but from Say, Garvey, Russell, Lopes, Baker, Monday, I could name Yeager, I could name them all. And I was in awe in front of 55,000. And Joe Torre was my manager. We got to the field late. We weren't able to take batting practice. We went out and take infield, and Joe called me in the office. He says, "How you feel today?" I said, "I feel great, Joe. I'm not thinking I'm playing." He says, "Well, you're in the lineup. You're hitting 8th today. You're playing." And so that was 20 minutes before the game, and then my head was spinning like a racehorse. So, but just a great experiences I've had.
Yeah. What'd you do in that first game, by the way? Do you remember?
Yeah, I got a base hit my first time up. I went 2 for 4.
Who's your hit?
I thought, short story, I went 2 for 4. I think I drove in a couple of runs. I scored 2 runs. I'll tell you this. I got a base hit. I struck out. I hit a ball off the left center field wall in Dodger Stadium, and I only got a double. And Joe Torre was standing at the top step in L.A., and I knew I should have had a triple. I knew that already, but I thought it was a home run, and I didn't hit home runs, but I hit the shit out of it. And he met me there at the top step, and he says, "Wally," he said, "that should have been a triple. I don't ever want to see you slow down going into second base." And from that day on, I believe the big thing about Joe Torre with me was you play that game hard for 9 innings, and I don't care what you're doing. But I learned that from Joe. He bet me at the top step, and Joe's not a little guy, and I'm not a big guy. And when he met me there and he told me that, I took that to heart. And I want to believe that I played the game the right way, and I played that game hard from that point on.
Well, I can just tell you, Wally, as a lifelong Met fan, you were awesome, man. And I'm not just saying that because we're working together. You're exactly what we want in player, blood and guts. So if Torrey gave you the business that day, then you obviously picked up on a lesson. Because I will say this to you, I don't recall ever questioning your effort, your desire, your grit. I think every day you were the kind of ball player that guys like me just gravitated to, man, because, effort for any lack of talent, your effort made you a very, very solid. And look, if we took a vote, who's the best Mets second baseman of all time? It's two guys. It's you and it's Fonzie. And, we've had some other good ones, but it's you or Fonzie, and that's it. So it's one of the
we
two.
had longevity with the Mets, and we put up good numbers for the Mets. We got them to places we were a part of a team that got them to places that, to the playoffs, to the World Series, things like that. So, no, Fonz was a great player. I want to say that my mind says, oh, Wally, you're the best. You won a World Series. But let me tell you, Fonzie put up some good numbers, and he was a hell of a player.
Hell of a player. You both were. Folks, we're going to have a lot of social media interaction. So some of the questions that you have out there in the coming programs, we're going to do more and more on the social media. We'll tell you more about it. And as you can see, Wally's going to field any question you may have. And don't worry, the questions get tougher. All right, Wally, let's go into the state of the current Mets. And we'll also talk about the trade deadline in just a second. Wally, you've managed a lot of these guys. You've crossed paths with a lot of these guys in the minor leagues, etc. Give me your view of the state of the Mets right now, and not just this year, but moving forward with what I think is a fantastic owner after really having, by the way, I have a nickname for the Wilpons. Okay, if you ever hear me refer to the coupons, okay, that would be the Wilpons, okay, because everything was cut out the coupons, all right? But
you know what? I got to say one thing, Bruce, really quick. They were good to me. I think that the Wilpons were good. Fred, I should say, was good to me. I heard a lot of things from Jeff, but Fred was good to me, and Fred was a diehard baseball fan that I think had only so much finance that he could really use. He tried to be the big guy, but I have absolutely not one thing to say bad about Fred Wilpon. Not one thing, and I would argue with anybody that said bad things about this guy, because this guy not only played some baseball, he loved the game of baseball. And, hey, the new owner now, Steve Cohen, this guy has everything that he has that he can spend to build a championship team. But he found out one thing in his first couple of years, that money doesn't buy a championship. He tried it. And now, I could go into some of these players that you have to build an organization with some depth. And the teams that do that you can trade players at the trade deadline because you got top prospects, or you can spend all your money and waste all your prospects and you'll have nothing in the system again. But as we're going to get into it, when you want to, I got 5 guys on my list that are pitching prospects that come from a very good individual that I trust a lot. And I won't say who it is, but it's somebody within the organization. And I trust this gentleman a lot about who the prospects really are and who to watch. And we all know that the Mets have played great in June. 16 and 22 games they won, whatever it was. But the fact is you can't win without pitching. And there's a few pitching prospects that you just never know can come in and help an organization get through. They try to call it the dog days. I don't think there's dog days anymore, but to get through that late August and early September, pitchers, some of your great pitchers, young pitchers in the big leagues and for the Mets, they hit an innings limit and you got to shut them down. You have to protect them. And baseball does that today.
I will say this, and then I want to pick your brain on some of those names. From my standpoint, Met fans who really got on Steve Cohen were wrong, okay? And the reason why they were wrong is he came in, he said he was going to spend money. He spent a lot of money, Scherzer, Verlander, etc., and it didn't work. And so why keep throwing bad money after bad money? I like the plan. I like the retrenching. I like the fact that they didn't just, fire sale the team even before the season and decide to build it from the ground up. Because, Stearns did a really good job building up that Milwaukee system. And,
He's
the Brewers.
doing a great job for the Mets right now.
Yes,
he's doing
I agree.
a great job for the Mets right now.
Yeah. Before we get into the minor, I do want to ask you this about the trade deadline that just passed. Are you surprised, disappointed, glad? What are you that the Mets did not trade Pete Alonso?
Well, I'll tell you about Pete. I like him. And I know that not a lot of people don't like him, but how are you going to reproduce a guy that's hit 25 home runs already and drove in 70 runs? And we still have 60 games left. So if do you trade Pete Alonso to get quality prospects? Yeah, you can. But my personal opinion is, and I know Pete, my personal opinion is he's a great guy in the clubhouse. He is an asset to the team. He's worked very hard on his defense. But can you make a change there? Who are you going to make your change with? I don't know. Is there a better player out there that's available? I think, we know Pete's going to hit 35 home runs. He's going to drive in 100 runs. Okay. So you have to score probably 700 runs in the course of a season to be a contender, wild card, whatever it might be. And that's 100 runs you got to make up for. So how do you do that? It's a tough question, and it's the toughest question is you give it to Stern, and that's what he does. And I think with only 12 players being on the active roster or the 25-man roster to start the season, and now they've made all these changes, I think it showed what this young guy, I call him young, I don't know how old he is, but he's not that old, but what he's capable of doing. I think it was probably the best move outside of players that Steve Cohen has done is hiring this man.
I'm going to give you a little counter. I'm not crushed that the Mets didn't trade Alonso. And look, if you're a Met fan, you love Pete Alonso, okay? He represents the team with class, with dignity. He's great with the fans. He is a great Met. Now, putting that aside, any personal warm feelings, this is business. This is baseball. I will say this, Wally. I think Pete Alonso has proven he's no Aaron Judge. And what I mean by that is this. In the last year of his contract, Aaron Judge, it was put up or shut up. And he put up 60 home runs. And Alonso, in the same situation, frankly, Wally, he has shrunk. He's having a very difficult season. I like home runs, but I'm not looking for home run hitters that are unproductive, 8 out of 10 at-bats, okay? And again, this has nothing to do with Pete Alonso, the person. As you said, and I don't know him, you do. I'm sure he's a wonderful guy, man. He has to be a wonderful guy, or he's the biggest fake I've ever seen. So I'm sure he's a wonderful guy. But baseball only. Now, the Mets are in the drive for the wild card, and I want to make the playoffs. So if you trade Alonso, there's a good chance the Mets could, frankly fall apart. The shock of trading, your most popular player, your all-star. I get that. So I'm not terribly disappointed, but if they don't make the playoffs, I think they made a big mistake.
Well, no, you could possibly be right, Bruce. And I'll tell you something about the game of baseball today. Lots of strikeouts, right?
Right,
Strikeouts kill rallies.
right.
So, in my day, and I really like to talk about players of today as well, but the ones that don't strike out, they do not kill rallies. And with this lineup that the Mets have today, it's a dangerous lineup. But you do have Pete strikes out too much. There's no question that he strikes out too much, so he can kill a rally. But from my experience managing over many years, not at the major league level, but strikeouts kill rallies. So when you put the ball in play, things can happen. You can force the defense to make mistakes. We can get into it. That's one of the things that the Cardinals did back in the 80s with all that speed. They forced the defense to hurry. The defense made mistakes, and the Cardinals capitalized on the mistakes that were made. So when you can put together a team like the Cardinals did, probably, I'm going to say in the 80s, they had all speed. They didn't have a lot of power. They added Jack Clark. They added a few guys. Tommy Hurd drove in over 100 runs and only hit, I don't even know if he hit 10 home runs that year. But when speed can really change the game. And I hope that baseball goes back to some of those things where strikeouts do mean something. But, you'll get analytics. It'll say strikeouts don't matter. Yeah, they matter. No question they matter. Because it kills
That's
rallies.
ridiculous. Yeah. And listen, we'll have plenty of time to talk about the evils and I guess some of the good stuff about analytics. It will be interesting, Wally. I'll wrap this part of it up on this. It will be interesting to see with Pete hiring Scott Boras, who's a pig. Okay, I don't think he cares anything about the game of baseball, and I understand he's an agent. I had an agent, and they're out to get, but not at the destruction of the game. It will be interesting, Wally, because nobody's paying Pete Alonso $40 to $50 million, and that's where he came up
No.
small, and that's where he proved he's no Aaron Judge.
Well, there's only, you know what? I'll say this: there is only one Aaron Judge. And there's only another guy that's close to him, and that's Ohtani, and that's Trout. And after that, those are the three best players in the game when they're healthy, in my opinion.
Wow. Okay, we're going to go to battle on Trout. Ohtani's unbelievable. Unbelievable. No disagreement there. And, as far as Judge versus Alonso, Alonso broke Judge's record for home runs by a rookie. So, this constantly happens, by the way. Let me just say this. The Yankees are the evil empire. Your biggest mistake in your career was going to play in that sad-ass Philadelphia. I didn't want to let that go, and I'm going to get on you about that. But in the case of Alonso, no, I did think Pete Alonso could be, right there with Aaron Judge, and he's proven not to be. Look, if they make the playoffs, then it's probably better that they didn't deal him. If they miss the playoffs, it's going to be the biggest mistake of the year.
Yeah, it could be. I look at baseball after I played and I managed and whatever. It is so important to be able to build a team from within the system. So it's really important that the scouting system and the player personnel, the manager and blah, 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 the general man, all those people, they got to stay on the same page because there's certain needs and there's certain people you go after and there's certain reasons that people say, wow, why did we pick that guy as number one pick? It's because that's a need. And so I think from building within, if you do it properly, it's important because then you have all those pieces when you get to the trading deadline. You have those pieces that you can trade. And to, it's about this year. It's not about next year. I don't want to hear about rebuilding a team. If you have a system that can produce players year after year to make you compete, I'm talking being a 500 team, and now you get to the trading deadline and you can step up and you can trade a few prospects, somebody that gets you over the hump to where you can win 90 games with the wild card today. Hey, yeah, I mean, we seen it last year. The Diamondbacks go to the World Series. They're a wild card team, and they were good.
And the team that won the World Series was a wild card team. On the final day of the season, Texas got knocked down to second place. And they were the wild card.
I wanted to say one thing. I do appreciate older managers that played the game in the past, and they didn't have to play, but some of them that played. But a question that I have for you is, let's just go over the last 3 or 4 World Series. Who was the manager on the team that won the World Series? You got to think.
You got Bochy last year.
Okay.
Right, you got Bruce Bochy last year, and he's certainly no young spring chicken, and right out of retirement too last year.
Played with him.
You've got Dusty Baker. The year before that, I think. I hope I'm in sequence, but Dusty Baker's won the World Series in the. And he's old. I mean, he's now he's no longer the skipper of the Houston Astros. Tremendous manager. So Baker's got a lot of years on him. Bochy, I think what your point is. I think you're making a point here.
I am making a point. I'm
about
saying
seasoned managers.
A seasoned manager is key to success. The younger managers, they may be good down the road. But let me tell you, a seasoned manager plays the game the way he wants to play the game. He's not being told, which a lot of them are told today, and I know that's a fact. But they're hired to run the game the way that they are, and that's why they were hired. But I look at the veteran guys that run the game today, and I mean, we can do a little research and talk about it next week, whatever. But these guys are special people. They really are special people because they know the game as a player and as a manager, and they've learned the young and they learned with the old, and now they've learned with the young. So they've been able to make changes through the course of their managing career, and they've done a great job. And Bruce Bochy's a Hall of Fame manager. There ain't a question about it.
All right, Wally, let's there's 2 things I want to cover before we get out of here today. You talked about building a team from the system within. You've been able to go through the minor leagues, talk to your contacts, and the Mets made, they picked up a relief pitcher, Brazabon. They picked up Stanek from Seattle, another relief pitcher. He got hammered his first outing. He pitched pretty good his second outing. They picked up, I forget the kid's name, a couple of weeks ago from, was it Tampa or somebody? So they've tried to beef up the bullpen. Wally, give us Met fans who don't get a chance to see the minor leagues and, don't study it as much as you do. Give us Met fans a couple of guys who you would be optimistic about so we could feel good about some. I mentioned this to you earlier. A couple of times in my Met lifedom, okay, they've had the staffs that were going to be the staffs of the century. DeGrom, Syndergaard, Matt.
Had them all.
And that staff really never became what it should have been. Before that, it was Pulsifer and Wilson and Isringhausen. And then Izzy had a nice career. And Pulsifer and Wilson, played a little bit, but that staff was never lived up to its billing. So give us some real hope on the Mets minor league pitching and what you see there that we could see at Citi Field in the next year or so.
Okay, well, I think that Citi Field has got a little bit of a look at Christian Scott. He hurt his UCL. He was 0-3. He was starting for him. ZRA was like, I think it's right at 4. I don't have the exact numbers, but this kid has promise. He's a big prospect. Brandon Sproat, if you look up this kid's numbers, he was in Brooklyn this year. He's in AA, and he's good. He's legit. Now, I've seen the Mets in the past when I managed in the minor leagues take guys out of AA and go, wow, man, you're rushing this kid. But I'm going to tell you what, when you look out strikeouts to walks, this guy's probably really legit. Dom Hamill, he looks good too. And you got Nolan McLean, another guy that they're starters, which the Mets need. And, they have a way of, sometimes there's always the unsung hero. Now, let's say the Mets get to the playoffs in the wild card. I'm not counting them out for not catching the Braves because the Braves have so many injuries.
9 games, huh? You think they could still? Well, you mean for the second? Well, I'm sorry, for the first wild card. I apologize, Wally. I was thinking of the Phillies. My bad.
Yeah, no, I think the first wild card. I think what they've done in July dictates maybe who this team is. And I hope that we have time because I'd like to get into why this team is so good now. But you also have, I think I told you this, Nolan McLean. These are all quality guys that, from my understanding, from who I deal with, and I deal with multiple guys, but they said these guys are prospects. And you know what? The most interesting guy, the most interesting guy is this Nolan McLean. This was a two-way player. And now he's strictly focused on pitching. He's got a big arm and a two-way player. I go back to, let's say Bo Jackson. Great two-way player in the fact that he played football and baseball. You don't get Ohtani's very often. Now, and this might be a guy that he's decided to focus on pitching, and I want to see it. It's hard to do both. Ohtani is a special guy, but if this guy decided to just pitch on, and I looked at his college numbers, and he had some power, but I think if this guy is as good as I'm being told, he's the sleeper in the whole thing. His numbers are not very good this year. But I am told it's a power arm. He's got good stuff. And if you can focus on one part of the game, which would be pitching for this guy, I think he's going to be a lot better. So he's kind of the sleeper in a bunch. So my point is the Mets have prospects. They have guys coming. I don't know where they rate on the prospect sheet for the Mets, but I'm dealing direct with front office people or coaches or whatever it might be about these guys. And I'm trusting what they've told me. So, I look at these guys and go, okay, there's a little bit of depth. Need to bring a guy up for a couple of starts or somebody to fill that spot to where he's going to give you hopefully a quality start and not get blown out in the first or second inning and the game is over, because it happens in baseball every day. But there's some good pitching prospects that they got, which is accountable. And I'll say this forever. It is about the scouting system. And most people, when your scouting system gets in line, or vice versa, with the coaching system or the front office, whatever it is, and you trust each other, you can create a dynasty. But you have to be on the same
I'll say this
page.
too for Met fans. The Sanga's out for the regular season, but they have not ruled him out for the postseason. There's a good chance if the Mets make it. The other thing, Wally, that I love is the fact I love this Buto kid, man. This guy has got one of the nastiest changeups. He's back from a couple of months. He threw 3 innings the other day I think they're setting him up, Wally, to put him back in the rotation. That's why they stretched him to 3 innings. just a couple of nights ago, and I think we're going to see Buto back in the starting rotation real soon.
Well, you know what? He can be a quality starter, and starting pitching for the Mets is in need right now. You know when you look at going to the playoffs, going to wild card game, who's your number one guy to win that first wild card game? But you have to have quality pitching if you want to go length into the postseason. You better have 2 or 3 really good starters. And, Singa would be
all right, I want to
huge
he
thing
pitched
coming.
so good the other night too, and it was like nothing. Wally was a pop-up that he wasn't even involved in. That's the Met luck, by the way. He's walking off the mound. Next thing you know, he's on the ground.
Yeah, no,
it was awful, just awful.
No,
and he pitched a really
what?
good game.
It's funny, Bruce, because you know what? I was the only person in my house in 1969 at 10 years old with one TV that was rooting for the Mets to win the World Series. And the rest of my family was rooting for the Orioles. And I was like, I wanted to say, fuck you. But I couldn't say that. I was only 10. So I rooted for the Mets way back then. So, and you know what? I still root for them. I got lots of players that I coached there. Lots of players that I wish were still there to create a dynasty. We lost to DeGrom. Harvey had his issues. Matz has gone. We just don't have them left. We thought we had a pitching dynasty coming.
And how about Thor, Wally? How about Syndergaard? You talk about, Harvey has his personal demons. Matz had injuries. DeGrom.
Power arm, had some issues.
But how about Syndergaard?
There's 100.
Man.
Over 100.
You talk about a guy.
You learn things about players that, and I don't want to really throw Noah under the bus. I had him. But this kid, I believe, really never had a father figure, which I think it affected him. And, Noah, I sat in my office in Las Vegas, and I told Noah, I says, there's no way you're going to pitch in the big leagues. I don't care how hard you throw, but your times to home plate are a 1.5, 1.6. I says, me at 60 fucking years old can steal second base against you. And teams learned that about Noah. So, but my bottom line is the kid came in crying to me in my office, and I hope he would admit it, because I would like to have him as a guest. And he told me in spring training, he says, Wally, I worked so hard on speeding up my times home plate. So I had an impact on this guy. And I do really want to see this kid become somebody again, because he definitely has the ability, and I think he has the mindset.
Yeah, I'm going to say this to you, Wally. Screw Noah Syndergaard. He fucked us over. Okay, we paid him. We offered him $18+ million, even though he missed the entire season with an injury. We offered him $18+ million. He took like 3/4, and I'm not sneezing at $750,000. Okay,
right.
But you owe us a little. To me, you owe a little something. And he took like $700,000 more to go to Anaheim. Okay, stabbing us in the back. If we have him on as a guest, great. But I'm not happy with him.
Yeah, no, he made a mistake. I mean, everybody makes a mistake. It doesn't matter what you do in life, but everybody's going to make a mistake. And I bet you if we can get Noah Syndergaard on there, on our show, I think that he'll say, you know what? One of the biggest mistakes I made was leaving the Mets.
Okay, now if he says that, then he's back in good graces. So you tell him to come on here.
And I think he would. I know the kid. I had him for a whole year,
all right.
A year.
I mean, he's a nice kid, but he really stabbed us in the back.
Yeah. I want a winner on the field.
If he comes on here and apologizes,
I want a winner on the field. If I'm managing, I want a winner on the field. I don't have to like everybody. I just need everybody to give me 100%.
That's
every
true.
day of every inning. You're never going to like everybody on a 25-man roster as a player, as a teammate, or as a manager, or as a coach. because everybody talks and they talk about it. But you have to respect them for what they do. But you never have to like everybody. You got to put the best product on the field. And I will tell you this, I think that is what Stern knows. And I was surprised. I know he's from New York, but I was surprised when they hired him. I didn't think they would ever get him, but I see why they did. This is why I give Cohen so much credit, because this guy, like I said earlier, 12 players on opening day roster. They sucked. They sucked. And now they're a fucking contender. Why? Don't tell me it's all about the players, because it never is. It's about what Stern has done to change the face of this team. You know, you and I talked earlier today. We've gone over some of the information we wanted to do, and you know, I'm not going to say my names yet, but you know, if we have time to talk about the Olympics, and hopefully Marsh can.
Oh, I got something for you. Yeah, we're going to wrap up with that for sure, Wally. A little fun thing based on the Olympic Games. I can also see this, Wally. We have already had some pretty good disagreements on some of these players. You're obviously a big Trout guy. I'm not. Okay, and so these battles and these debates will go on into the future. Now, last thing today, Wally, in honor of the Olympics and the United States once again kicking ass. Okay,
yes,
doing very well in several sports. We're going to do the Olympic medals in two different categories. Major League. You hear that music? Oh, listen to that, Wally. Now, that music right there will get the hair up raised on your skin anytime. Wally, I've got two different categories for you. Olympic medals, okay? All right. First category, Wally. Give me your bronze, your silver, and your gold medal, National League, in the fight for the playoffs. Who are the three biggest fraud teams that are in the fight for the wild card? In order.
Okay, I'm going to say for the bronze that I picked the San Francisco Giants. And I'll just make it really brief and tell you why. They're 15th in the major leagues in hitting, and they're 22nd in pitching in the major leagues. So they're not good enough to get to the playoffs. They don't deserve to get to the playoffs. They have issues. Okay, my silver medal goes to the Pittsburgh Pirates. And the only reason that it goes to the Pirates is, is there a chance? Maybe there's a little bit of a chance, but they're 25th in hitting and out of 30 teams in the major leagues. But they are 7th in pitching. So, you know, pitching can change the game a lot. Pitching is what you have to compete in postseason. But my gold medal, meaning the worst, is how could you pick the St. Louis Cardinals? I know they're only like a half a game out, but they're 13th in hitting. They're 16th in pitching. They're in the middle of the pack. The middle of the pack don't win shit. So that would be my gold medal for those guys.
Gold medal fraud team that won't make it, the St. Louis Cardinals. You think they're a fraud?
St. Louis Cardinals will not make it. I'm putting them number one. I know we went backwards. Pittsburgh is – I love Pittsburgh. I played in Pittsburgh, but I just don't think they're good enough to beat. I mean, you know, we look at who's in the – right now we got the Braves. We got the who
Padres.
Do we got in the top four pitches?
Braves.
Spot.
You got the Braves, Padres. The Mets were a half game. It's Braves, Padres, Diamondbacks. Then the Mets.
Are pretty good. So I will say this. I think that this trip to the West Coast for the Mets is huge. And I really believe in chemistry, and I think I'm almost going down the list that some of the things that we mentioned to each other, you know, I think this is their spot, because when they come home, it's tougher schedule. and then they got to go back to the West Coast.
Yeah, two trips to the West Coast, and they come to Arizona here at the end of the month, end of August.
Yes,
Can't wait.
I think, and I got to go back to Stern, David, that he has put together or brought on players that changed the whole chemistry of the ball club. And anybody in baseball that tells me chemistry doesn't count is full of dog shit, because chemistry means everything. You still have to have the talent, but you have to have chemistry. And I'll just give you briefly: Vientos, Iglesias, Martinez. What have they done to the Mets to change who they are? A lot, I think.
Okay, I'm going to fire you my bronze, silver, and gold fraud teams. I'm going with you on the Cardinals. I'll go gold to bronze. The Cardinals are the biggest fraud. You're not going to the playoffs with Sonny Gray and Eric Fetty at the top of your rotation. Goldschmidt may be turning the corner on the downside, and Arenado's not had the season that he's had. I think the Cardinals are a complete fraud.
You know what? I agree with you. Let me tell you, Sonny Gray's a good pitcher. I'm not going to say that he's a bad pitcher, but
he's a good pitcher.
I go back to AAA, and he was originally with Oakland there, and Sonny Gray. They let him pitch, and he's their big prospect. They let him pitch. In the first inning, we scored 6 runs off the guy, and they called the game. They suspended the game because it wasn't a complete game yet. So, okay, no big deal. A month later, Sonny Gray, we got to play a doubleheader, but Sonny Gray pitches game 2 of the doubleheader. Well, we beat him game 1 because he was down 6-0. He pitched game 2, and we beat him again. So he lost 2 games in one day, but I like Sonny Gray as a pitcher, but gosh dang it, man. How many other pitchers can we name on a contending team that you want?
Sonny Gray has BBs for balls, Wally. BBs. He couldn't pitch in New York. He folded. He couldn't take Oakland past the first round many times. I think he's a fraud on the number 1 fraud team. My silver medal for fraud trying to get to the postseason, the Chicago Cubs. Just give it up, Chicago. You got a nice manager. You got a nice import pitcher. You're going nowhere. The Cubs are going nowhere. They're the silver medalist, fraud, wild card team. And for my bronze medal, I don't think they're a big fraud. I don't think the Pittsburgh Pirates are experienced enough yet. Even though they made some nice moves at the deadline, I don't think the Pirates have enough to get there, but I do think they're on the come.
No, I think they are too. I think you look over 100 games, they've played 108 games or something. You know, this team is still over 500.
Wally, that young pitching.
With the wild card teams.
And Jared Jones. Okay, Skeens is unbelievable. Jared Jones is unbelievable. I think he's hurt right now, but I saw him pitch against the Mets. I've seen him a number of times. Man, Skeens is getting all the headlines. Watch out for Jared Jones. This guy is nasty, Wally.
No, I hear you. He's good.
All right, let's go to our Olympic medals. Finally, to wrap it up, our Olympic medals, as we're a little bit past the halfway season and coming down the stretch. Mets MVP, Wally. Bronze, silver, and who would you, as of right now, and by the way, you could very well change your mind. We got 60 games to go, and it's all pressure-filled. But as of today...
I'm going to go... Okay, I'll go with the bronze first.
Okay.
When we talked about this earlier, we were talking about... I can't pick one guy. I got Jose Iglesias. I got JD Martinez, and I got Vientos. And the reason I'm giving the bronze is because they haven't been there the whole year, but they've been a part that's turned this team 100% completely around. And that's why I put them at the bronze, because they're huge assets. I managed against Jose Iglesias when he came up with the Red Sox, and I thought this might be the best shortstop I've ever seen. And you put Iglesias at second base and you got Lindor at shortstop, you got Taylor in center, whoever you put out there, you have to build a team through the middle to win a championship. And that's what they've done. Alvarez is good behind the plate. He's learning still. He's got some flaws. I love the guy because he plays with energy.
Oh, he plays with great passion.
I love those three guys. You know, JD's an older player. He brings leadership to the clubhouse. Iglesias brings leadership, but he brings chemistry. He's funny. He's fun to be around.
Okay, listen. You're a member of the media now. Stop with the hemming and the hawing and the hedging. Who's the gold medal winner, MVP right now of the New York Mets? The gold medal guy.
Lindor.
Okay. I'm going bronze. I'm going Lindor. By the way, love the power and a tremendous shortstop. The average needs to come up a little bit, but the defense, he plays every day. I think he gives it all he has. I think he's all about the W. He's going to get my bronze. The silver goes to J.D. Martinez. The Mets started pounding the baseball. Marte got hurt. J.D. stepped in. Of course, he missed the first, 4, 5, 6 weeks. Man, his power to the opposite field is impressive. He is a great offensive baseball player, but unquestionably, Wally. And this is why the media is a joke, and I include myself in that. We do predictions. There isn't one person walking the earth today that would have told you that Jose Iglesias, 14 years in the big leagues, is going to come in and save the Mets. Nobody would have ever told you that. I'm telling you, this guy's the MVP, Wally.
No, I get it. I gave the silver to Brandon Nimmo. I had this kid. He's putting up big numbers. You're talking about a guy that was a leadoff hitter, and they turned Lindor into the leadoff hitter. To go first to second and do the things he's done, this kid's leading the team in RBIs, I think. So, I mean, hey, they have a solid lineup. Pitching is the key to success.
I agree.
When you have a lineup the way that they have it, they got a chance.
I agree. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that'll put a wrap on today's program. I want to thank our producer, Marsh, back in the studios. And from Soundville Media, LLC, it's 86th, the Wally Backman Show. And we'll see you next week.